Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Okay.
Today, we're going to be taking a look at Jewish law and tradition.
Right?
And to help us navigate through this complex world, we're going to be drawing a lot from Rabbi Zilber's lectures.
Excellent.
He's got this incredible knack for weaving profound lessons into everyday scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's a master storyteller.
He really is.
So I'm really excited to see what kind of gems we can unearth today.
Me too.
So one of the first things that struck me when I was going through Rabbi Zilber's teachings was this emphasis on holiness.
Okay.
You know, I always had this idea that holiness was all about, like, outward appearances,
Yeah.
following all these rituals, dressing a certain way.
Right.
But Rabbi Zilber kind of flips that on its head, doesn't he?
He really does. Yeah, he argues that true holiness actually lies in the everyday choices that we make. The choices to resist temptation and follow God's commandments.
So it's more about that inner struggle,
Exactly.
that commitment to moral action,
That's at the heart of it.
rather than just outward piety.
It's that inner refinement.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not about being perfect.
Yeah, not at all.
But it's about constantly striving
Yeah.
to make those right choices, even when no one's watching.
Even when no one's looking.
Okay, so like a practical example.
Sure.
Rabbi Zilber talks about resisting forbidden foods.
Yeah.
Or, even relationships that are outside the boundaries of Jewish law.
Right.
So it's about those daily choices
Exactly.
where you have to exercise that self-control.
Yeah, those daily battles that we fight within ourselves,
Right.
It's those that really refine our character.
And bring us closer to the divine.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
It makes holiness feel a lot more attainable,
It does.
like something we can actively work towards.
It's a process. It's a journey.
Okay, so speaking of difficult choices,
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi Zilber also addresses this really interesting topic
Okay.
of honoring parents,
Yeah.
which is a commandment that we all know.
Yeah, it's a big one.
But what happens when a parent's demands
Right.
clash with divine law?
That's the tough one.
Right. Who do you obey
It's a real dilemma.
when your loyalties are divided?
Yeah, and, Rabbi Zilber explores this through a really compelling anecdote
Okay.
about a son who is seeking reconciliation with someone his father disapproves of.
Oh, interesting.
And this story really highlights this hierarchy of authority
Okay.
where God's commands ultimately supersede even a parent's wishes.
So even though honoring your parents is paramount,
Yeah, it's essential.
there are situations where following divine law
Right.
takes precedent.
He takes precedence, exactly.
Wow, that's
It's a lot to unpack there.
it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
And it's something I think we all grapple with in different ways,
Yeah. Absolutely. Navigating personal beliefs and societal pressures
Right.
and those deep-rooted family expectations.
It's a constant balancing act.
It is.
Okay, so now I want to shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about this concept of Shemitah, the sabbatical year where the land is left fallow.
Yes.
Honestly, when I first heard about this,
Mhm.
I thought it was crazy.
I can imagine.
Like in a world where we're obsessed with productivity.
Right. Maximizing output.
Right. And, just constantly striving for more.
Always pushing forward.
To intentionally cease agricultural work
Yeah.
for an entire year
Just,
seems counterintuitive.
it goes against everything we're taught.
It does.
Doesn't it?
And it really requires a tremendous amount of trust
Yeah.
to believe that, things will work out.
To have that faith.
Right. It's like the ultimate test of faith in divine providence.
It really is.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Rabbi Zilber claims that no famine ever occurred
Wow.
during a Shemitah year when the laws were followed.
That's a bold claim.
It is.
Yeah.
And he even mentions this amazing story
Okay.
about the 1973 wheat harvest in Israel,
Yeah.
where the yield was double the usual amount,
Despite it being a Shemitah year.
despite it being a Shemitah year. So it's like,
Makes you think.
it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
could there be a deeper wisdom
Right.
in embracing these cycles of rest and renewal,
Maybe we have something to learn from this ancient practice.
even in today's world?
Yeah.
It definitely challenges all of our assumptions about
Yeah.
resource management and economic models.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to something that I think impacts our daily lives in a very real way,
Oh?
and that is the power of speech.
Oh, yeah.
Rabbi Zilber really emphasizes the gravity of Lashon Hara,
Mm-hmm.
which translates to evil speech
Yeah. Harmful words.
and the profound spiritual consequences it carries.
He's not talking about casual gossip here.
No.
This is serious stuff.
Right. He's talking about Words that can truly wound,
Yes.
that can slander.
Spread negativity.
And this is something that I think is even more relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
In the digital age, where words can travel so far, so quickly.
Yeah, think about cyberbullying, the lasting impact of hateful comments online.
It's like Rabbi Zilber's teachings were anticipating these challenges.
It's like he saw it coming.
Of our hyper-connected world.
Yeah.
And to illustrate this point,
Okay.
he uses this powerful story from the Torah, the story of Tamar and Judah,
Right.
where a simple phrase carries immense weight
Wow.
and ultimately leads to this surprising confession.
Really shows you how words can both deceive and reveal truth.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder
It is.
to be mindful of our words
Absolutely.
and to choose them carefully.
Especially in this digital age.
Right. Are we using our voices to uplift and inspire, or to tear down and diminish?
That's the question.
Okay, so we've covered some pretty weighty topics.
We have.
Maybe we can lighten things up a bit
Okay.
by talking about some of the rituals and symbolism that Rabbi Zilber discusses.
Sounds good.
For example, he talks about the Sukkot festival
Yes.
and how it connects to the Israelites' journey through the wilderness.
After the Exodus. Powerful imagery.
It is. And he explains that dwelling in these temporary shelters,
Sukkah.
this is sukkahs,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
is about so much more than just reenacting a historical event.
It's about cultivating gratitude
Right.
for what we have and a deeper reliance on God.
And there's so much symbolism embedded in these rituals.
Oh, yeah.
Like even the lulav and etrog used during Sukkot.
Right.
They represent different aspects of human action and devotion.
Exactly. They're not just empty actions. They're
Right.
tools
Right.
for shaping our character and strengthening our bond with the divine.
It's fascinating how these tangible actions
Right.
can connect us to these deeper spiritual truths.
It's like a whole other language of spiritual expression.
It is.
Yeah.
So we've seen how Rabbi Zilber emphasizes this inner struggle of holiness, the complexities of honoring parents even when it's difficult,
Right.
and this radical idea of Shemitah
Yeah.
as this model for sustainability and trusting in divine providence. We've explored the weight of our words and how even simple rituals can hold profound meaning.
It's all connected.
It is. What I'm finding so fascinating is how all of these seemingly disparate concepts
Yeah.
are actually intertwined, creating this intricate tapestry of Jewish thought and practice.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. I'm curious to hear more about how these ideas play out in other areas of Jewish law and tradition.
Well, we've only just scratched the surface.
Right.
There's so much more to explore.
Should we dive deeper?
Let's do it.
Oh.
Welcome back. It's fascinating how Rabbi Zilber uses these rituals
Yeah.
as a springboard to discuss these broader ethical principles.
Yeah, one that really caught my attention was this concept of not mixing different species.
Okay.
He brings up grafting trees, which is a common agricultural practice,
Right.
and explains that it's actually forbidden in Jewish law.
Interesting.
And it's all about this idea of respecting the natural order.
Yeah, not trying to play God,
Right.
so to speak.
And then he connects this idea
Yeah.
to the prohibition against wearing clothes made of mixed fibers,
Oh, wow.
like wool and linen together.
I never would have thought of those two things as connected.
Right. But he finds this underlying theme
Yeah.
of purity and integrity
Okay.
running through both of them.
It's about recognizing boundaries
Right.
and respecting the distinct nature of things.
And it makes you think about how we approach technology today,
Yeah.
genetic engineering.
All these areas where we're pushing the limits.
Right. Are we being mindful of the potential consequences?
Or are we just forging ahead without considering the ethical implications?
Right. It's a big question.
Yeah.
Now, Rabbi Zilber also delves into the laws surrounding sexual relationships,
Okay.
which is a topic that can be quite sensitive.
Absolutely.
He explains the severe punishments for certain transgressions.
Right.
But it's important to understand the context
Absolutely.
and the underlying values at play here.
Not just looking at the rules in isolation.
Right, because it's easy to get caught up in those rules
Yeah.
and miss the bigger picture.
Exactly. He's not condoning these punishments.
Right.
But rather explaining them as part of a legal system that existed in a very different time and place.
Right.
So the key takeaway here is this emphasis on chastity, fidelity, and the sanctity of marriage.
Values that transcend any particular
Culture or historical period.
And he even points out
Yeah.
that having relations with your own wife during certain times is forbidden.
That's right.
So it's not about restricting intimacy,
No.
but it's about creating this sense of
Reverence.
and boundaries.
Even within a marriage.
It's recognizing that intimacy is a sacred act,
Yeah.
not something to be taken lightly.
Okay, so I'm also curious about this concept of tuma and tahara,
Okay.
ritual purity and impurity.
All right.
This one's always been a bit confusing for me.
I can understand that.
What makes certain things considered impure, and
Yeah.
what does it even mean?
Right. To become ritually impure.
It's not about hygiene in the conventional sense.
Okay.
Think of it more as a spiritual state.
Okay.
So certain experiences, like contact with death or
Yeah.
certain bodily emissions,
Okay.
these create a state of tuma.
And so it's a temporary separation
Exactly.
from the realm of holiness,
Yes.
requiring specific rituals
Right.
to restore purity.
To restore that balance.
So it's not about being dirty in a physical sense,
Not in the way we typically think of it.
but about a kind of spiritual misalignment.
Precisely. Rabbi Zilber uses this powerful analogy
Okay.
of a king in his palace.
Hmm.
You wouldn't just barge into the king's presence
Right.
without proper attire and a quorum.
There's a certain protocol
Right. A level of respect.
required to enter that sacred space.
Exactly.
So tuma is like being in a state
Yeah.
where you're not yet fed to enter the king's palace.
You need to prepare yourself.
Right.
Realign your spiritual state.
To be worthy of approaching the divine. That's a great way to put it.
And it's not just about individual purity.
Yeah.
It also applies to objects and spaces.
That's right. Like
Yeah.
if a Cohen, a priest,
Mm-hmm.
becomes impure,
Okay.
he can't perform his duties in the temple
Right.
until he undergoes these purification rituals.
So maintaining a certain level of sanctity
Yeah.
in all aspects of life is
Yeah.
important,
It permeates everything.
because even our physical surroundings
Right.
can hold spiritual significance.
Absolutely.
Which reminds me, we touched on the laws of kashrut earlier,
Uh-huh.
but Rabbi Zilber goes deeper into the specifics of how animals must be slaughtered
Right.
to be considered kosher.
It's very detailed.
It's incredibly detailed and precise.
Yeah, and what really stands out
Yeah.
is this emphasis on minimizing the animal's suffering.
Right.
The slaughter has to be swift and painless,
Hmm.
performed by a trained individual
Right.
with a perfectly sharp knife.
So there's this recognition that even in taking a life for sustenance,
Yeah.
there's a moral obligation
Yeah.
to treat the creature with respect and compassion.
It's acknowledging the interconnectedness of all living things.
It's like a sacred act almost.
Yeah.
And speaking of respect for life,
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi Zilber also talks about the prohibition
Yeah.
against causing unnecessary pain to animals.
Yeah.
He even mentions castration,
Wow.
which was a common practice at the time.
Yeah.
And it says it's forbidden.
That's a bold statement for that era.
It is. It really challenges us to reconsider our treatment of animals, even today.
Absolutely.
Are we acknowledging their sentience?
Their capacity to feel pain
Right.
and distress.
Are we using our dominion over the animal kingdom responsibly?
Are we being ethical stewards?
It's a big question.
It is.
And these are all questions that tie back into this idea of living a life
Yeah.
in harmony with God's will as revealed through the Torah.
It's not just a set of arbitrary rules.
Right.
It's a blueprint for a life of meaning
And ethical conduct.
and ethical conduct. Exactly.
Cultivating compassion, self-control,
Yeah,
and a deep reverence for the sanctity of all creation.
absolutely.
So we've explored holiness, honoring parents,
Right.
the power of speech, ethical treatment of animals,
Mm-hmm.
ritual purity,
Yes.
and the significance of various rituals.
It's remarkable how interconnected all these concepts are.
It is.
Yeah.
But there's one we touched on earlier that I'd love to dive into a little bit further,
Okay.
and that's Shemitah.
All right.
It really raises some fascinating questions
Yeah.
about economic models
Uh-huh.
and sustainability.
It's a concept that challenges our modern sensibilities.
It does. Can you imagine a world
I know.
where every 7th year,
Yeah.
everyone just takes a break from work?
It seems impossible.
How would society even function?
Right?
But Rabbi Zilber presents it
Yeah.
not as some utopian fantasy,
Okay.
but as a practical system
Hmm.
with built-in safeguards.
Interesting.
He explains that the 6th year always brings a bumper crop,
Okay. Yeah.
enough to sustain everyone through the 7th year.
It requires a tremendous amount of faith
It
and
doesn't.
communal cooperation.
And he emphasizes that it's not just about resting the land.
Right.
It's also about releasing debts
Oh, wow.
and giving everyone a fresh start.
Can you imagine the societal impact of that?
A system that prevents people
Mm-hmm.
from falling into perpetual poverty.
It's a bold vision of economic justice,
It is.
a system designed to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Not just a select few.
It challenges us to rethink our assumptions about wealth,
Right.
ownership, and the purpose of work itself.
It does. Speaking of which,
Yeah.
Rabbi Zilber also addresses this issue of lending money with interest,
Okay.
which he says is strictly forbidden.
Again, it seems counterintuitive in our modern financial system.
It does.
Yeah.
But he explains that lending with interest creates a cycle of exploitation
Right, where the rich get richer.
at the expense of the poor.
It's about recognizing the inherent dignity of every person and ensuring that economic transactions are fair and equitable.
He even talks about treating a fellow Jew who's fallen into debt with compassion and respect,
Right.
not as a servant.
Not someone to be exploited.
It's a reminder that true wealth isn't measured by material possessions,
Yeah.
but by our relationships and how we treat those less fortunate.
It's about fostering a sense of community
Right.
where everyone is supported and valued.
Where economic success isn't achieved at the cost of another's well-being.
Exactly.
And this ethic of compassion
Right.
extends beyond financial matters.
Absolutely.
Rabbi Zilber stresses the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect.
In all our interactions.
He speaks about the gravity of gossip and slander
Right, reminding us that words have the power to wound.
and destroy reputation.
He warns against bearing grudges and encourages forgiveness
Emphasizing the need for reconciliation.
and restoring harmony within the community.
It's about creating a culture of understanding and empathy.
Exactly. And he takes it even further, suggesting that we shouldn't even think bad thoughts about others,
Wow.
that our inner world should be as pure as our outward actions.
That's a tall order.
It is.
But I can see how cultivating that mindset of love and compassion
Yeah.
would have a ripple effect on our interactions with others.
It's a challenge to overcome that negativity
Right.
and to focus on building each other up.
Not tearing each other down.
Exact. Yeah.
So we've seen how these teachings emphasize personal responsibility, ethical conduct,
Yeah.
and a deep respect for all living things.
But Rabbi Zilber also talks about Kedusha, or holiness,
Okay.
in a broader sense. He explains that the land of Israel itself is considered holy.
Right. Chosen by God as the dwelling place for the Jewish people.
It's not just a geographical location.
Right.
It's imbued with spiritual significance.
And he connects this to the laws of Shemitah,
Okay.
saying that letting the land lie fallow every seventh year
Yeah.
is a way of acknowledging God's ownership and expressing gratitude.
For the abundance it provides.
It's like a Sabbath for the land,
A time for renewal.
a reminder that our relationship with the physical world
Right.
is not one of domination.
But of stewardship.
Wow, we've covered so much ground already,
We have.
but I feel like we're just scratching the surface of Rabbi Zilber's teachings.
There's always more to explore.
He weaves together so many complex ideas,
He does.
from the practical details of ritual observance
Right.
to the loftiest ethical principles.
It's truly inspiring
It is.
to see how these ancient teachings can still offer so much guidance for navigating the complexities of modern life.
And while he acknowledges the human tendency to stray,
You have to make mistakes.
to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
He also emphasizes the power of teshuvah,
Repentance.
repentance.
It's about turning away from wrongdoing
Right.
and returning to the path of righteousness.
It's a message of hope and renewal,
It is.
a reminder that even when we stumble,
Yeah.
there's always a way back.
That's such a powerful message.
It's not about being perfect,
No.
but about recognizing our imperfections
Accepting responsibility for our actions.
and committing to doing better.
It's a process of growth and transformation that leads to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our relationship with the divine.
This has been such a rich and thought-provoking discussion.
It has.
But before we move on to part 3,
Okay.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
What's resonating with you most from Rabbi Zilber's teachings?
What really strikes me is how these teachings, while deeply rooted in tradition, offer this timeless wisdom for navigating the challenges of life.
Right.
It's a reminder that even these ancient texts can offer valuable insights for our modern world.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
They offer this framework for living a life of meaning
Purpose.
and connection to something greater than ourselves.
And in part 3, we'll explore how these ideas connect to this concept of tikkun olam.
Repairing the world. I'm excited to see where this conversation leads us next. All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Jewish law and tradition with Rabbi Zilber. We've been unpacking some really profound concepts,
We have?
from the nature of holiness to ethical treatment of animals, and even, those radical economic models like Shemitah.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, and in this final part,
Right.
I'm excited to explore this idea of tikkun olam,
Yes.
which translates to repairing the world.
A powerful concept.
It is. And Rabbi Zilber emphasizes that this is not just some lofty ideal,
Right.
but it's an active obligation for every Jew.
It's a call to action.
It is a call to action.
Yeah.
It's about, making the world a better place through acts of kindness, justice, compassion.
Absolutely.
And it feels especially relevant today
Oh, yeah.
with so much going on in the world.
These all the challenges we're facing.
It really does. And it's not just about these grand gestures, is it?
No, not at all.
Rabbi Zilber talks about how even our everyday choices
Right.
can be acts of tikkun olam.
It's the small acts of kindness.
Right.
The small acts of justice.
That accumulate.
They add up over time.
Speaking up against injustice.
Yeah.
Helping someone in need.
Simply being a good neighbor.
Right.
These seemingly small acts,
Yeah.
they can ripple outwards.
Create a more just and compassionate society.
Exactly.
And I love how Rabbi Zilber connects this idea
Really?
to the concept of mitzvot,
The commandments.
the commandments, right?
Yeah.
It reframes our understanding
It does.
of the commandments.
Oh, yeah.
Because he explains that each mitzvah
Mm-hmm.
is an opportunity to repair a little piece of the world,
To bring it closer.
to bring it closer to that state of harmony
Of wholeness.
and wholeness.
Yeah.
I like that. It's like each act of kindness
Right.
is like a stitch
It's a
in this
stone.
cosmic tapestry,
I love.
mending those tears and imperfections
Yeah.
caused by all the negativity and injustice in the world.
It's a beautiful way to think about it.
It is. And it reminds us that we all have a role to play
We do.
in this ongoing process of repair,
Mhm.
and that no act is too small.
Right.
Every effort contributes to that larger goal
Exactly.
of creating a world
Yeah.
that reflects God's will.
Well, that's the ultimate goal.
So Rabbi Zilber also dives into the laws of Shabbat,
Okay.
the Sabbath,
Yes.
emphasizing its central importance in Jewish life.
The cornerstone of Jewish practice.
It is, and it's so much more than just a day of rest.
It's about connecting with the divine.
It is.
Stepping back from the busyness of the world.
Right.
Focusing on spiritual renewal.
And it's interesting because he says it's not just about
Right.
what we refrain from doing,
Yeah.
but it's also about what we embrace.
What we bring into our lives.
Lighting candles,
Yeah.
sharing meals with loved ones,
Engaging in prayer and study.
creating that sacred space and time.
A sanctuary from the everyday world.
A sanctuary, I like that.
Yeah.
And in a world that's
Right.
constantly pushing us
To do more, be more, achieve more.
to do more, be more, achieve more,
It's exhausting.
it is to have this dedicated time
Yeah.
to pause,
To just be,
Just
to
be-
put unplug and recharge.
and reconnect with what truly matters.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about individual observance.
No, it's about creating that collective experience,
Right.
that shared rhythm of rest and rejuvenation.
And it strengthens the bonds of community.
Exactly.
Speaking of connecting with something larger,
Okay.
Rabbi Zilber also talks about prayer.
Yeah.
He delves into the structure of Jewish liturgy
The significance of the different blessings.
and petitions.
Right.
And it's not just about asking for things, is it?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating gratitude,
Okay.
acknowledging our dependence on God,
Aligning ourselves with the divine will.
opening our hearts and minds to a higher power,
Right.
seeking guidance, expressing our deepest longings.
And finding solace in the midst of life's challenges.
It's a powerful.
There's a real humility to that. Acknowledging that we don't have all the answers.
We don't.
And while personal prayer is important,
Right.
Rabbi Zilber also highlights the power of communal prayer.
Gathering together to amplify our voices,
Oh, yeah.
create that collective expression of faith and devotion.
It's a reminder that we're not alone in our struggles.
We're not.
That we can find strength and support
Yeah.
in the company of others
Who share our beliefs.
who share our beliefs.
Exactly.
So before we wrap up our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to touch on one final theme that Rabbi Zilber explores,
Right.
and that's the importance of education and
Mhm.
scholarship.
Okay.
He says, studying Torah
Right.
is not just an intellectual pursuit.
It's a spiritual practice.
It is a spiritual practice, a way
Yeah.
of connecting with God's wisdom.
And he emphasizes that the Torah isn't just a book of laws.
Right.
It's a living document,
Right.
a source of endless inspiration and insight.
That can guide us in all aspects of life.
Ah.
He encourages us to approach Torah study with humility,
Yeah,
recognizing that there's always more to learn
always.
and that every generation has something new to contribute to that ongoing conversation.
It's a living tradition.
It is. It's not about memorizing rules.
No.
It's about engaging with the text
Right.
and finding meaning that resonates
Yeah,
with our own experiences.
absolutely.
It's about keeping that tradition alive, not as a static relic of the past,
Right.
but as a dynamic force that continues to shape our understanding of the world
And our place in it.
and our place in it.
And
It's a lifelong journey
it is.
of discovery and growth
A process of deepening our knowledge.
and refining our character.
Exactly.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive
Oh, you have?
into Rabbi Zilber's teachings.
It's been an incredible journey,
It has been an incredible journey.
exploring all these concepts.
What stands out to you?
I think what's most remarkable is how these teachings,
Mhm.
while rooted in ancient tradition, speak to these timeless questions of human existence.
Mhm.
How to live a life of meaning.
Right.
How to create a just and compassionate society.
How to connect with something larger than ourselves.
These questions are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago.
And it's inspiring to see how these ideas can still be so relevant and applicable
Yeah.
in today's world.
They offer a framework for living a life of purpose.
It makes me want to reflect on my own choices
Yeah.
and actions, to see how I can embody these principles
In your own unique way.
in my own unique way.
That's the beauty of Rabbi Zilber's teachings.
Okay.
It's not about blind obedience. It's about engaging with the tradition thoughtfully,
Right.
finding ways to make it relevant to our own lives.
Absolutely.
So whether you're exploring these ideas for the first time
Right.
or rediscovering them anew,
Mm-hmm.
I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity.
And giving you some food for thought.
Exactly.
The journey of learning and growth is ongoing. There's always more to discover, more to understand,
More to apply to our own lives.
more to apply to our own lives.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this fascinating exploration
It's been a pleasure.
of Jewish law and tradition.
Until next time.
Until next time.